When I went to check and see if he damaged my door, I nearly fainted as I saw a knife embedded into the door itself. What is your Christmas horror story? It was Christmas Eve, and I was a freshman in high school. My family has been split up for some time, so normally we trade off of Christmas Day and Christmas Eve every year, and this year I had come home early from my grandparents' Christmas party, while everyone else was at my aunt and uncle's celebrating at another party. When I was dropped off, my cousins offered to stay with me for a few hours, yet I declined. I thought I could watch some of my new DVDs and get some alone time in the house, which is a rarity. I had noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street, but didn't think anything of it considering it was Christmas Eve. Probably a neighbor's relative or something. After I got inside, I locked the door, grabbed snacks, and started to settle down. I hadn't been home for more than 15 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I unlocked the door and opened it only a crack to see a man standing there. Dark hair, glasses, slightly overweight and dressed casually. He didn't look like much of a threat, but my stomach dropped. He asked I was wondering about the car outside. Is it for sale? I told him I didn't think so. Is there someone here I can talk to about it? I said, and quite stupidly I might add, no, you can come back another time, and shut the door and turned the lock as fast as I possibly could. He reached for the handle immediately and started pounding on the door. I heard a string of profanities and the pounding stopped. Terrified, I was crawling on the floor to the phone hoping he wouldn't be able to see me through one of the windows. Then I heard the noises. Our house had an open garage door, and it led through to the laundry room, where the door lock was broken and no one had bothered to fix it. Just then I heard a man yell, and I saw the man through the window run to his car and drive off. My uncle had gotten him just in time and scared the man off. Who knows what would have happened if he hadn't made it home in time. Sadly, we didn't get the plate number and nothing ever came of it, but I'll never be home alone on a holiday again. This story takes place 4 years ago and it still haunts me to this day. It was Christmas night and my family were driving home from this fancy restaurant. I, unlike my family, wasn't tired, so the 45-minute drive seemed perpetual. On top of that, my little sister was constantly moaning about how her friend didn't get her anything for Christmas. After about 20 minutes of driving, my dad stopped at a gas station to get some cigarettes, and my sister, brother, and mother all got out to pee. I stayed in the car as I had already gone before we left. Once they all left, I decided to play a few games on my phone. I looked at the car clock and saw that 10 minutes had passed, so I immediately wondered what was taking them so long. As soon as I peered out the car window, I saw a man staring at our car. The man startled me as I didn't know how long he had been watching. What made it even more unnerving is that he had a plain blank face, no expression was shown. It was hard to make out any features as it was pretty dark, and he wasn't standing in an illuminated part of the station. He was about 5'9" and looked to be middle-aged. Once he saw me notice him, he started walking towards the car, and I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't scared. Luckily, my dad came back with the rest of the family just as the man took a couple steps. My dad apologized and told me he had been in an argument with the cashier. I didn't care, I was just glad that my dad was with me. I took another glance at the man outside, and he was still staring, but this time he had an annoyed look on his face. We drove off, and for the rest of the car ride, I couldn't stop thinking about that man. This wouldn't have been too bad if it had ended there, but it didn't. Later that night, I was watching YouTube while everyone else slept, and luckily for me, a storm was raging over us. I enjoy storms, it makes me cozy as I'm laying in bed. I put my phone down and just enjoyed the ambience. That didn't last for long as I heard something smash into the window behind me. I lurched forward and nearly fell out of the bed. I thought a bird had just smashed into the window. I parted the blinds and what I saw next haunted me. I saw a man standing out by my parents' cars, looking up at my room. I took a closer look and I nearly had a heart attack. It was the same man that I saw at the gas station, only this time, when our eyes met, he grinned. Being the 14-year-old I was, I did the manly thing and screamed at the top of my lungs. My dad came running down the stairs and entered my room. "Why the hell are you screaming?" he said. I told him about the man and I explained everything that had happened. My dad grabbed a baseball bat and told me to call the police. After 10 minutes, the police turned up outside our house and found the man in our shed. He got arrested, and that was the last time I saw him. The next day my dad inspected the house, and we found the handle of our back door had been damaged, but not completely broken. This gives me an eerie feeling, as if he actually managed to get in. He could have harmed us, or possibly killed us. I really wanted a PlayStation 4 when it was originally released. I tried everything to get one as quickly as possible. The local Best Buy was having a Black Friday sale, and I stood in line, waiting to get one. I was nowhere near being lucky enough to actually get one in this method. I then tried getting one online. As much as I wanted one, the people on eBay and Amazon who were selling them were asking way too much money and I couldn't afford them. After several days of trying my best to find a way to get one, I had to come to the conclusion that it wasn't going to happen. It was then that I thought I came across a bit of luck. Going through Craigslist, I found that someone was selling their PlayStation 4 and at no more than the original buying price of the system. I, of course, was skeptical. I couldn't understand why they would do that. Also, I figured as in demand as the system happened to be, that someone would have claimed it right away. I immediately emailed the seller and let them know that I was very interested and hoped that they still had it. I was surprised to get an immediate response that they did still have the PS4 and would be willing to sell it to me. They asked for my address so they could bring it over. I was sort of hesitant and asked if it would be better to meet in public. I wasn't too keen on the idea of someone coming over to my house. He let me know that he was going to be very busy all day and that he couldn't keep an appointment in public. It would be much better if he came over to my house. I was still not really ecstatic about the idea, but I really wanted that PS4. I agreed and gave the guy my address. I figured it was safer than me going over to his place. This whole exchange took place about 9 AM. I was so happy and really eager to get my PS4. My eagerness only grew as I began waiting for the guy to show up. Hell, I not only began waiting for him, I waited for him for a long time. Hours passed by, and I began to think that he wasn't going to come. Around 2 PM I had gotten really impatient. I tried emailing the guy back, asking him where he was. Previously, I had gotten very quick responses from him, but I didn't get any this time. Around 6 PM, I had lost all hope. I figured that most likely he got a better offer from someone else and didn't want to tell me. I was disappointed, more than I can possibly even tell you. I couldn't even tell you how deflated I was. It's one thing to not have gotten the item from the store, I could come to terms with that. But I was so close to having one in my hands and I didn't get the PS4. For the rest of the night, I kept looking around on Craigslist to find a new PS4 that was within my price range. I wasn't able to find anything, and before I knew it, I had wasted the entire day and the entire evening with this search. It was past midnight and I just had nothing to show for the day. I got ready for bed and that was when I heard something. At first I dismissed it, thinking that it was my imagination. Then I heard it again, and someone was knocking at my door. I walked up to the door and looked out the window. There was a guy standing there, and I asked who he was. He identified himself as the guy who had the PS4. He apologized for being so late and told me he had got caught up during the day. He asked if I had the money. I opened the door, but kept the screen door closed. I told him I had the money, but I didn't see that he had anything with him. I asked if he brought the PS4 with him. He told me it was out in his van. He told me to get the money and come out to the van with him, and he would get it for me. I let him know I wasn't really comfortable walking out to his van, and he told me it was alright. I looked over his shoulder and saw that someone was in the van waiting. And he had been keeping his hand in his hooded sweatshirt all the time while talking to me. There was something more than just his hand in there. I told him I'd go get my wallet and then come back. He protested as I closed the door in his face, and then I locked it. I was too uncomfortable with this, and I went over to my phone to call the cops. As I did, I heard a loud hit on my front door. Then after a few moments, I watched the van drive away really fast. When I went to check and see if he damaged my door, I nearly fainted as I saw a knife embedded into the door itself. I was right that he had something in his sweatshirt, and that I shouldn't go out to the van with him. His was a few years back. The big Christmas gift that year was a game called Attack. It was supposed to sell out pretty quickly, and my nephew really wanted one. So I decided for the first time ever to brave the Black Friday crowd and see about getting one. I waited outside the store in line for it to open. The entire time I kept wondering why people were so fanatical about doing this. It was cold, and although I was reasonably bundled up, it didn't help that I had to spend so much time not moving. In addition, people were in terrible spirits, which seemed to take the spirit away from the event. Some people would try to cut in line, which only made the people already in line crabbier than they were. When the store was getting closer to opening, I noticed that there was someone from the store headed out and talking to each person in line. When they got to me, I realized he was handing out tickets, indicating who would be able to buy a new Attack game. He asked me if that was why I was there, and I told him yes. He told me I was lucky then, because I was getting the very last ticket. Of course, this caused some groaning and swearing from the people behind me. Although I hated the idea that there would be a lot of children who wouldn't be getting the toy they wanted, I was elated. That was until this guy got out of line and walked up to me. He came up immediately after the worker left. He first offered to buy the ticket from me. I told him no, because it wasn't a matter of money, it was me trying to make my nephew happy. He then started telling me that his son really wanted the toy. I countered with letting him know that my nephew also really wanted the toy. When I kept refusing, he started telling me other stories, such as his son was really sick, but I could tell he was just doing his best to make me feel guilty. From further back in the line, a few other people began telling the guy to leave me alone. He got into a shouting match with several of them. Eventually the guy stomped away, but not before telling me I'll get that toy. I tried not to think about it. I went in, claimed the game, and did some more shopping. I figured that, since I had spent so much time outside waiting, that I should try to get as much done as I could. When I was done in that store, I went back out to my car. I put all the toys in the trunk, and then I walked over to the bookstore in the strip mall in order to get some other items. When I began walking back to the car the second time, I paused when I noticed the man from earlier was leaning on my car. I began feeling tense, knowing that the guy was going to confront me again. He was much bigger than I was, but I decided I couldn't let him intimidate me. As I got closer to my car, he noticed me and he smiled. He reached into his pocket, and I assumed he was reaching for his wallet. But it only took a moment before I saw that it was a pocket knife and he flipped it open. Immediately stopped. I couldn't imagine the guy would be stupid enough to try and threaten or stab me in a busy parking lot. But I didn't want to test that theory, so I turned and quickly ran back into the store that I had bought the game in. I let the store security know what happened, and they gave me an escort out to the car. The man was gone, but I was still shaken. I was more shaken when I noticed knife marks on the lock for my trunk, and the trunk was dented. There were also deep scratches in my driver's side window. I never went out on Black Friday again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe so we can bring you more.